Good afternoon, welcome back to Asgard, and welcome to the second episode of our Nuclearcraft how-to/mod spotlight series. So this episode we are going to be talking about fusion reactors, and when it comes to fusion reactors, there's two primary different types. There is the standard fusion reactor core as well as the steam fusion reactor core. Now I will say from what I've seen and what I've tested, if you set it up right, the steam one is actually more efficient as far as power generation and stuff goes. But I've also noticed, and it may be because I'm using like the most recent version, which is kind of like a beta version. It's the 1.9 version for 1.7.10. But you'll notice like over here, it's not really pumping out the steam like at all. And sometimes it will, sometimes it'll kick in and start pumping out steam. But then other times it'll just sit in here. So just a heads up on that. Some aspects of it are a little bit buggy. Also, when you first set up your reactor, sometimes it can take up to like 10 minutes to finally recognize your full structure and be like, okay, well, that's set up right. So with that said, let's go ahead and set up a reactor. We'll go ahead and just set up a standard fusion reactor to start with. And it's going to take this fusion reactor core. It is a 3x3x3. There we go. As you notice, it's a bit large, but it's just one block. It's not multiple blocks or anything. And then when you go to set this up, these are completely scalable however big you want them to be. However, from my testing and everything, it seems like you might as well just make them semi-small unless you just want a large one. I haven't noticed too much of a difference as far as RF production or anything with the larger one. So when you first go to set this up, you're going to want to put out some fusion connectors. When I first started playing with this mod, I was putting electromagnets down right here, and I was like, it's not working. Because I've noticed it's kind of hard to find very much information on this mod. So, it did take a little while to get all this figured out. Whoops. We'll bring that out. And then you're going to want to surround this with electromagnets, just the standard ones. There are different types of electromagnets within the mod. However, the other ones are for like right in here. The superconducting electromagnet is for particle accelerators. Also, the electromagnetic supercoolers are for particle accelerators. So we just want just the standard electromagnets. So we'll make a ring of these, just like so. And then we're going to want to make another ring right down here. And we'll just really quickly run these out. And I'll cover everything in the GUI and all in a second, because there is a lot, within that. And then we're going to make another ring right here. Just bring this around. Because basically you want a ring that runs all around the multi-block, or all around the core, and it needs to be hollow in the center. Because what's going to happen, if you notice there's all that purple stuff that's on fire, I'll show you what that is in a second, or what caused that, but basically that stuff's going to be running around inside of this. So now that we've got that placed, if you notice it says ring incomplete, that's not actually true. This is the full multi-block. However, like I said, it does sometimes take up to 10 minutes to recognize it. And then you're going to want to just bring power around this. Whoops, I have item conduits. My bad. But it does seem to work with pretty much any kind of, conduits included within mods and stuff. So just whichever you prefer. Because basically we're going to want to give all of these electromagnets power. And they are going to require about 50 RF a tick each. So you do need a decent power infrastructure and everything to really get started with this mod, because these are going to require about 50 RF a tick, and then we're also going to need quite a bit of power to get this started as well. So then we'll bring some conduits around here. And that. And just like that. And we'll give those power. And just a heads up, you'll probably, if you set this up like that, and this is actually working correctly, you're going to notice that it says that not all the electromagnets have power. That's because this back corner here, it's easy to miss. So make sure you get these. And if you do, the conduits flip-flop like this over here, and then that down there, you'll want to make sure and check these top ones. So you always have, if you just run those rings of conduits, you're always going to have some corners that aren't hit by those. So that's pretty much all of it. You're also going to want to supply the reactor core with power. So we'll just put a creative cell right there. Because when you go to set this up, for starters, in order for it to run, it's going to have to get the temperature up to 8 MK minimum to start running the reactor. You'll notice the temperature starting to go up. In order to get it from 0 to 8, it's going to require about 40 million RF. So you're going to have a decent amount of power built up, plus you're going to have 50 RF a tick for these electromagnets once it starts running. So keep that in mind. Of course, ours still says ring incomplete, so we're not going to be able to use this one right now. Now, I will say, instead of building these really large ones, if you want to really optimize your reactors, these can be built on top of each other. So if we were to do that and build out another set of rings, this would run at double speed. So, for example, instead of using, say, 5 fuel a minute, let's say, 5 of each fuel per minute, it would instead use 10 fuel per minute, but it would generate double the RF. And you can actually stack these infinitely up. And what's going to happen is they're all going to use the bottom reactor. They're going to use its inventory. So you won't have to supply fuel to all the ones that are built above. You only need to supply fuel to the very bottom one. And it will, run all the ones above it. But if I was to decide to build a reactor below this one, it would empty out the inventory from this one and put it into the one below it. So your inventory is always going to go to the very bottom one. But we'll come over here because I've actually got some reactors set up that are actually running and are registering as multi-blocks. So you'll notice all this purple stuff. What it is, if I was to come over here and say bust this block right here, you'll notice it dumps some of that purple gunk out. Basically, that's like the fuel and stuff that we're using inside of this. So, if you notice, it's very dangerous to have that stuff leaking out because it doesn't really seem to despawn. This has been burning for probably about 20 minutes now. And just keeps on burning. So just a heads up on that. Make sure you don't break those blocks when your reactor has any kind of fuel or energy or anything like that in there. So now let's take a quick look at the GUI here. And by the way, this is a fusion reactor. This one is a steam one, and we'll get over to that in just a second. But this fusion reactor, oh, also one other thing before I forget to mention it. Of course, you can stack these up indefinitely on top of one another to increase the speed and everything. Also, if you wanted to build, say, another reactor, say right here, it can share electromagnets with this one, and that's not going to be a problem. So, of course, it's not going to be able to share these bottom ones, but it will be able to share these this side here. So then you could bring, say, this out over here and have you know, another line. Oops, another line running out over here, like that, or whatever, and set up a reactor here with that side touching. That's not a problem at all. So looking at the GUI here, there's a lot of information. It took me a little while to figure out what all this is. Well, we'll start from the left-hand side. This first bar here is the efficiency. So as this blue bar increases, your reactor's efficiency is going to go up. So of course you're going to get more RF per fuel that you use. Then this green bar here is the temperature, and as it rises, it does take a really long time to raise these gauges on these reactors, like an extremely long time. This one's been running for probably about 20 minutes now, and you know, it's barely moved up. But this green bar is going to be the temperature. So as this goes up, of course, the temperature is going to go up and increase the speed at which your fuel is burnt up. One thing to note, these fusion reactors cannot explode, so you don't have to worry too much about that. However, if you get your fuel too high, it's really a waste to run it, because it's just going to burn up fuel and not really produce an equivalent amount of RF. So just be aware of that. This third bar here is your energy that's built up within the buffer of the reactor. So if I didn't have this lithium-ion battery here, it would start building up a bar here that's the internal buffer, and it can actually store a lot of RF within the reactor. And then these last two bars are just your fuels. So this is fuel 1, this is fuel 2, and your inputs correspond to that, fuel 1 and fuel 2 inputs. And then you can see on here just some information. It's a fusion reactor. You have this toriad size, and it says 3. Basically, that is the distance between the core and the electromagnets. So we have 2 connectors here, and I don't really know if it measures the edge of the core or the first ring of magnets, but either way, basically you just add 1 to the number of fusion connectors you have. That's your toriad size, so you can just kind of see that at a glance. So for example, if we come over to this larger one and take a look at it, you'll see that its toriad size is 16, because this one is a 39 by 39, yeah, 39 by 39 size. So that's all that toriad size is. You can also see the energy stored, which is that third bar. You can see it right here. You can see your 2 different fuels and the percentage field they are. You can see the power output. So right now we're generating a little over 1,000 RF a tick with this, and it's steadily going up as our efficiency goes up. Our efficiency just now hit 10%. And then you can see the temperature we have at the moment. So that covers those bars, and like I said, these are your inputs for fuel. So for example, right now I'm running boron 11 through this, and so if we want to throw some more in there, you'll see the fuel levels increase. Right here you can actually click here and see your recipes. So you have all these different recipes. Like if you shift click or shift over the reactor cores, you'll notice that each reactor says that it fuses hydrogen, deuterium, tritium, helium-3, lithium-6, lithium-7, and boron-11 to generate a very large amount of steam. or a large amount of RF. You don't have to use all of those at once. It's just any combination. So if you wanted to, you could just use boron 11, you could just use hydrogen, etc. And you can mix and match freely. But you can click on here and just see the recipes, because you are going to get some byproducts when you run this stuff through. Now right here you can put some empty capsules, and that's how you're going to get your neutron capsules, or anything, any kind of capsule based byproduct. And you're going to see these little white bars down here below the byproduct lists. So if I pull that out, you'll see it starts filling up. Now generally helium-4, you're going to get a ton of this. If you notice, it's running that bar up fairly quickly. And basically those white bars just tell you how much longer till you get a byproduct. And there's a separate box for every possible byproduct that you can get. So if you look here, there's helium-3 that goes in that slot, hydrogen that goes in that slot. Of course, these are neutrons. You have tritium that goes there, and then the top right is deuterium. So just a heads up on that. And then some of this, of course, you can actually put back into the reactor, for example, like the deuterium and the hydrogen. However, the helium-4 cannot be replaced back into there. You can use helium-3 but not helium-4 within the reactor. Also with these sails, you can actually shift over them, and you can see there in the flavor text it says fusion fuel best combined with hydrogen. However, one rule of thumb that I've personally noticed is that if you go into your recipes and look and see how much helium-4 that each of these make, you can kind of gauge how long that those are going to run and how much RF they're going to produce. So for example, if we go over here to pretty much anything with boron 11, and then like a lithium or something is going to produce 64 helium. Double boron 11 produces 80, and it is the longest running that I've found. If you notice, we've just now bumped it down to 98% since we last filled it up. So just a rule of thumb, you can kind of get an idea of how long the stuff's going to run and how much RF or steam it's going to produce. So that pretty much covers the GUI for this, I'd say. Really quickly, let's talk about the steam fusion reactor cores. They're going to produce steam, in this case dense steam. Now when you first start messing with this, you could just put down a steam generator and just let it have at it. So for example, if I put down an interfluid conduit feeding into a steam generator, you'll notice this has 2,600 steam in it. And then we could put, say, a lithium battery on top. Set this to extract, always active, and you'll notice it runs through that steam extremely fast and only produced a measly 5,200. However, you don't, particularly, especially with like dense steam and then super dense steam, you don't want to feed that straight into a steam generator, because it's just going to produce the equivalent amount of RF as if you had ran just standard steam through that. So what you want to do with the dense steam is run it through a steam decompressor, and if you have super dense steam, you can run it through a dense steam decompressor and then that into a steam decompressor, all before you run it into the steam generator. Because what happens is when dense steam is pumped into the steam decompressor, it makes 1,000 millibuckets of steam for every 1 millibucket of dense steam. So you're going to get 1,000 times the RF if you decompress it before sending it through the steam generator. So never feed it straight into a steam generator. And you'll notice that it's running through the dense steam fairly quickly, but it is producing quite a bit of RF. We're actually about to fill up. Yeah, we're about to fill up that lithium-ion battery, which this has actually been running on boron 11, and it's only at 50% right now, and it's pretty much filled up a lithium-ion battery in that time. So from what I've seen and what I've tested, the steam fusion reactors are a bit more efficient on fuel than the standard ones. They do just take a little bit more setup because you're going to have to make these steam generators and decompressors and all that good stuff. So, you know, if you're going for efficiency, I do suggest the steam fusion over the standard ones. And yeah, I think that's mainly it. I bet you if we run over here now, take a look at this. Yeah, see, now it's formed. It takes it a while, I've noticed, to actually realize that this is a suitable multi-block and to say, okay, you can run now. And like I said, it does need to build up to at least 8K. This one's already built up to 28K. And then, the last thing I want to talk about is pumping items in and out and whatnot with these. So energy can be output from any area on the block. So if you wanted to, you could stick a battery directly onto this and it would pump the power out of there. And keep in mind, if you're using stacked reactors, it's going to treat all of these as just one multi-block, basically. So if I put down, say, a lithium battery right here, it's going to pull the RF from all the stacked reactors, you know, just from that one spot. So you're not going to have separate item inputs and item outputs and all that stuff for each reactor. You really just need one setup for that. So energy can be pumped out anywhere. Items can be pumped into it anywhere. So for example, over here I've got a chest that's just pumped into the top here. So if I wanted to, I could grab, say, some I should show you hydrogen and, say, deuterium, because you can see how fast these actually run through compared to that boron. So if I throw in the deuterium and the hydrogen, you'll see that it's starting to pump into this. Now, one thing you want to keep in mind that I've noticed is if I just throw in, say, a stack of that, you'll notice that it starts dumping. Oh no, it's working fine for that. Mainly if you're running two of the same energy source, you kind of want to be careful. You know, if you just throw like 2 stacks in there, because it's just going to dump one stack into the first slot, fill it up, and then just dump another stack here, and it's not going to fill up both slots. But you'll notice that this is running through those cells extremely fast, because that was a stack of each. But you can pump the items in anywhere, you can pump the energy out anywhere. Then pumping out items, it has to be on the bottom layer. So anywhere on this bottom layer, you can pump the items out automatically through that. So if you notice, the helium is coming through here. Redstone control, you can actually attach a comparator to this, and it's going to emit a redstone signal based on the heat level of the of the reactor. So if we come over here to one, this one has a little bit, and you'll notice that we have a redstone power of 2. So you know, that's going to be totally based just on your temperature. And one thing I would suggest is, if you want to keep your reactor running as efficiently as possible, you can set up a little redstone system and have it, of course it's not connected right now because of this, but you could have your redstone run around and plug straight back into this, and your redstone control is going to be on the bottom layer. It has to be the center block, though. It can't be the side blocks. So if I have this ran around and connected, basically once this reactor gets so hot, the redstone is going to come around and it's going to hit this reactor and automatically shut it off for us. That way we can keep our efficiency high and lower our temperature a little bit and get it a little bit kind of balanced out. Because like I said before, you don't want your reactors getting too hot. So you know, that's just a simple little setup with redstone to prevent that from happening. So I do believe that's about everything. I think we've covered it all. But as always, if you guys do have any questions, feel free to let me know. Next episode, we will be looking at fission reactors, because those do work a bit differently. But this is pretty much everything, you know, that you'd need to know to set up a fusion reactor. And like I said, do keep in mind a couple things. First off, I do suggest the steam ones over the standard. They seem to be a lot more efficient for power generation. And then also watch out for these corners, because they can be easy to miss. So if it says that your electromagnets are not all powered, be sure and check those corners. Either the bottom, if your conduits are set up this way, or if they're flipped, it'll be the top corners. So just a heads up on that. Excuse me. But yeah, so as always, if you guys enjoyed this video, please comment, like, subscribe. Any questions, feel free to hit me up either in the comments down below or on social media listed down below. And I will be more than happy to get back to you as quickly as possible. And also, as always, if you guys have any things that you would like to see, you know, feel free to let me know, and I will do my best to get that to you as soon as possible. But I hope you guys join me for next episode, and we'll take a look at fission reactors. So until then, do take care, and I hope to see you guys then.